All right, this is my second in a series of videos on fantasy leagues, NASCAR fantasy leagues, and who I think you should pick coming with the upcoming race. Now, this week we are going to Bristol in the dirt, and it is going to be completely different. Sorry, a little headset issue. Apologize for the feedback there. But we are going to Bristol in the dirt, and I want to talk about the track here and the race and kind of my philosophy on how I went about looking at this. I am definitely late in posting this video, but the reason is that I really wanted to look at the practice times. We don't have a lot of history on the dirt, so you don't have a lot of history to go off of, combined with the fact that we're in a next gen car and we don't have much history on it. So I really wanted to see how everybody did in practice before I put this video together. So as I said, we don't have much history to go on, but I'm going to look at results from last year's Bristol Dirt Race and the practice sessions from Friday, April 15th. And I'm really going to place more emphasis on the second practice than the first. Teams really had a chance to adjust their cars after the first practice. So the second practice is really going to tell you where they're going to be when it comes to race time. And the second practice session was also a lot closer to the time of day that they will be racing. So it's in the evening, and the track changes as the sun sets, and it gets darker, and it gets cooler, and you get more moisture in the air. As much as a track would change if it were concrete or asphalt, it is going to change even more if it is dirt. So that's why I'm really focusing a lot on the second practice, and I'm going to refer to P1 and P2 as the two practice sessions, unlike where I normally talk about P1 and P2 might be position 1 or position 2. This is practice 1 and practice 2. But with that, let's get into this. I'm going to give you 5 starters, 1 dark horse. And here we go. This is dark horse number 1, Brad Keselowski, driving the number 6 for RFK Racing. In P1, he had the second fastest 15 lap average. So he came out of the gate pretty strong. They unloaded pretty fast. In P2, he was fastest overall, but made only 15 laps. So what does that tell me? That tells me he must have been pretty happy with the car after the first practice, didn't want to take a chance of tearing everything up, and didn't really need to make much in the way of adjustments. So he just basically ran fast P1, came out P2, said the car is still good even though we're later in the day, and parked it. So I think that he is going to be a dark horse for me. Brad Keselowski, RFK Racing, is my dark horse for this race. Now, my number 5 starter, Christopher Bell. 4th fastest overall in P2, and you got to be careful looking at these overall practice times because as the tires wear, you go a little slower. So what happens is you may have somebody who went out and ran 50 laps compared to somebody who ran 15 laps. Well, obviously the guy who ran 15 laps is going to be faster. So you kind of have to be careful looking at the overall practice times. When I say overall, that is an average of all the laps they ran. So if somebody doesn't run very many laps, they're probably going to show up pretty quick. But I still think he is a pretty good driver for dirt. He's got a lot of dirt experience. He's well known as being probably the second best dirt guy out there next to Kyle Larson. He did not do well in last year's race, but the car was torn up, so we really don't know. I'm placing a lot of emphasis on that 4th fastest time in overall, or 4th fastest overall time in P2. So now, going to my number 4 starter. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And I realize these are some names you don't normally hear. I don't normally think of Christopher Bell as one of the top 5 drivers of the track. I certainly don't always pick Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He finished second in this dirt race last year, so he was pretty good last year on the dirt. He had the second fastest 10 lap average in P2. And when I looked at the practice times, I looked at the overall practice times. I looked at the 10, 15, and 20 lap averages. I don't think 5 laps is that important because you really don't get a feel for what the car's going to do. But second fastest 10 lap average in practice session 2, and a strong showing last year. I'm going to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. as my number 4 starter. Next, let's go to my number 3 starter, which is Joey Logano, defending champion of the Bristol Dirt Race, knows this track, knows how to get around it, proved that he can drive on dirt. 5th overall in P2. Okay, so good practice in P2. Top 5 in the 15 lap average. So not only was he 5th overall, he was top 5 in the 15. Two big categories in P2 where he placed top 5. So I'm going Joey Logano, my number 2 starter. Okay. Or I'm sorry, number 3 starter. Let's go to my number 2 starter, Tyler Reddick. Okay. Now, last year, nobody was paying any attention to Tyler Reddick, okay? It got to be late in the season before he started making some noise with some good, strong runs. But even before he was running good overall, he finished 7th in last year's Bristol Dirt Race, which, based on how Richard Childress was running overall at that time, 7th was pretty good. And when you look at his 10 and 15 lap averages, fastest, number 1 in the 10 lap average, number 1 in the 15 lap average in the second practice session. Very strong once the car gets settled in, once the tires get a little heat in them. So I am very impressed with what Tyler Reddick is doing. He is my number 2 starter. So number 1 starter then, no surprise, I am going with the king of the dirt world, Kyle Larson. He has won everything on dirt. He made a living when he was out of NASCAR running a sprint car on dirt and just basically winning everything and setting track records every place he went. So he knows how to get around on dirt. Last year he had a good car but got torn up and really didn't get a chance to show what he could do. He was 2nd overall in the second practice session. And listen to this, his 10, 15, and 20 lap averages, all 3 of those metrics, 10 lap average, 15 lap average, 20 lap average, were in the top 5 in P2. So that shows me that he's got a good, consistent, fast car. So I am going Kyle Larson, number 1 starter. So there you go. That's what I got. 5 starters, 1 dark horse going into the Bristol Truck Race. Not the typical names that you would see, but at the same time, it's a dirt race. You would not expect to see the same guys up front. So with that being said, last slide, here we go. My disclaimer, these are meant for fantasy leagues and not intended, nor should they be used for gambling purposes, okay? This is a race. It is on dirt. Anything can happen, and it usually does. No results or predictions can be guaranteed. So this is purely for fun, for your fantasy league, for bragging rights, so you can win your league and get some bragging rights and look like you are a NASCAR god among your buddies. If you do choose to gamble, and I do not recommend it, nor do I endorse it, but please gamble responsibly. With that being said, those are my picks for the Bristol Dirt Race. Enjoy the race. Enjoy Easter Sunday. Please, please, please remember the reason for the Easter holiday. Go to a church or synagogue or whatever your place of worship is. Honor the holiday and the rising of Christ from the dead, and remember what this holiday is all about. Take care of that stuff, and then go enjoy that dirt race. It's going to be a great show. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will catch you guys later. Peace out. Have a great day.